This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
I, Mokgweetsi Masisi, do swear that I will faithfully and diligently discharge my duties and perform my functions in the high office of President of the Republic of Botswana.
Good evening and a warm welcome to First Issues. We have a very special program lined up for you this evening as the country winds down commemorations for Botswana's 52 years as an independent country. We thought not to look back sentimentally at the country's past achievements, but instead focus on her economic future this evening in a one-on-one exclusive conversation with the country's president, His Excellency Mokgweetsi Masisi. Many an analyst will tell you that Botswana needs to conjure up the desperate political will that will shake it up from its hard-won place of comfort to the next level. That is dynamic, globally competitive innovation and a diversified high-income economy. The president has in the past alluded to there being a national transformation strategy in the works, one that will chart the path for Botswana becoming a developed nation by 2026. We are fully aware, however, that this country is well known for drafting amazing plans but struggling to implement them, and do go on to bring up the burning issues of implementation, will and leadership. But to begin our conversation with the first citizen of this country, we ask who exactly is involved in the formulation of the National Transformation Strategy, and when can we expect to see its stipulations?
Be as hopeful as what is stated in there is, because what's stated in there is intended. We draft it. The government of Botswana drafts it. Clearly, we're going to use talent, local expertise, and external. It's a mix of such expertise. We have some of the brightest people you can ever imagine. So tomorrow, for instance, I'm meeting with some advisors that we have. One of them sits in Nairobi, and a prestigious job, prestigiously appointed professor. And there's some Botswana who have engaged in the discovery of amazing things, including young people in the ICT space. So all these will form a wonderful calligraphy of what we get.
When can we expect it?
Well, let's wait until after tomorrow to a few other meetings, because then we'll get an idea of when it is. We want it like yesterday. There are certain things that we think are transformative or enablers of transformation that we will put in place. So there are some things that will be delivered as we go along. But then, big steps and big leaps, sometimes out of strategic necessity, may not be as candidly shared.
Another critique is that we have so many brilliant plans, but very little implementation. Where will this plan fit in with all the others?
The beauty of any plan, just like with a plan to build your house, is in the execution. So see it come. It will come. See some of the things that we're talking about today happen when we shorten procedures, when we are quicker, and when we put in an emboldened repositioning of our mindset.
What is your personal understanding of the presidential seat, your role in economic transformation of Botswana?
I lead it. Simple. I drive it. I provide the gravitas for it. You use presidential power to bring to bear and to place at certain times that which needs to be there to make that difference. So I appoint people, I disappoint people, I shift stuff. I make a whole lot of decisions on advisement.
There has been a critique leveled at Botswana that for a country of this size and with its resources, our health sector, our education, as well as our private sector should be further along than it is. Do you agree with this?
Totally.
How did we get here?
Well, I guess we all just didn't do what we ought to have done properly. Everybody. you know, government, private sector, NGO, religious organizations, families. You're just not acting up. Let's face it. Do you feel satisfied? No. So this lack of satisfaction should be reason enough for us to get off our slumber and do even more.
What brought about this mass inertia, this slumber? Do you have any insight into that?
No. I cannot pretend to be some voodoo, demigod or whatever. But there are some hypotheses I hold. But I don't think it too profitable to dwell too much on that. I'd rather spend my energy and effort on going forward and charting new ground. You know, if you come late to work, it's one. If you don't put in all the hours, it's one. If you don't know what you're doing, it's another. If you don't respond, you know, to stimuli or to requests, if you take so much longer to open a business and the processes are such that you are being outcompeted by others. I mean, there's so many very apparent, but some that are pretty complex. But we remain a people with a resolve, and we just need to know when to wake up and get up and go. Sometimes to do with priorities. I mean, if you look at the number of luxury cars on the roads relative to the amount of poverty there is, it's almost scandalous. If you divide up your own income at a personal level, you know, somebody doing the job you do, or the camera person, or somebody who works in a hospital as a nurse, a dentist, and whatever you do, and you divide up what they spend their money on, for many households, it's scandalous. And how do I measure it as president? You look at the extent of household debt. It's scandalous. And that is bad for business. I cannot fathom how businesses allow their own customers to be that indebted. I cannot understand how even the banking sector, in the sector you work in, how do they allow such levels of debt and risk? And it's not sustainable, it's not good for growth. So we need to get the chemistry right of all this.
Since taking office, the president has undertaken several high-profile state visits, including the much-discussed trip to the People's Republic of China. One, he said, yielded several notable outcomes.
Well, I went to China on a state visit initially, and then had a FOCAC, attended the FOCAC, and then I engaged in a whole range of discussions with the leadership of China, starting with His Excellency President Xi Jinping. And we reached broad agreement on a number of political issues, bilateral issues, enhanced our relations, and following which was an announcement by the Chinese government that they would forgive our debt by up to 80 million pula, write it off, and they would give us a grant of up to 340 million pula to be utilized on a project that we would both agree on. As for the FOCAC projects, we reviewed those that we had submitted requests for funding up to the tune of about 10.1, 10.2 billion pula. And so we expect that these will be financed. We expect the roads to be built, the railroad to be built, and as soon as all the documentation is signed up, those will begin. We did express to the Chinese leadership that we are in a desperate hurry for these projects. And I can mention some of the roads if you want. Yes. The road from Maun to Shakawe, the road from Maun to Nata, and the road from Nata to Francistown. And then we'll do the rail from Musetse to Kazungula. And then we will do the road to the Martins Drift border.
What do you make of comments from the National Business Conference saying, yes, it is great to have these kind of relationships with international countries and having the financing from those, but of including using more local capital and local talent in such big projects, especially when there's need for employment creation and all that?
I think it's also very good, but it's also real to be pragmatic and be circumspect. The cost of money is also a cost. And so we will give them a chance. We will, as we review our NDP 11, get into looking for capital projects which could be financed domestically. And we need to mop up the resources we have. But you know, it's important that money is also competitive and the efficiency of delivery of that. We want to develop our local bourse, you know, and develop our capital markets. It's critical.
I thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yes, I hope the positivity that you coming into the presidential seat has sparked or began to spark continues to grow.
I hope so. We wait till you're president.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you make of our first topic of discussion this evening? Do make sure to join in on the conversation on any of the First Issues social media platforms. After the break, however, we take a look at investor confidence in neighboring Zimbabwe with the help of industry experts. Do stay with us.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Emmerson Mnangagwa was officially elected president of Zimbabwe this year, following the ouster of long-serving politician Robert Mugabe last November. Although his presidency was very publicly contested before his inauguration, tonight we look at what his presidency means for the economic future of Zimbabwe. In the few months that Mnangagwa has been in the presidential seat, there have been reports of increased diamond exploration, foreign buyer participation on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and the signing of million-dollar mining deals, supporting the rhetoric from his new government that Zimbabwe is open for business. Could this be it? Is the change in leadership from Robert Mugabe to Emmerson Mnangagwa enough for us to see a resurgence of a country once celebrated as Africa's breadbasket? Tonight we ask the investment community what it makes of these developments, whether any positive sentiment expressed is indeed warranted or purely emotive. We speak to the experts to hear what their observations have been in recent months, namely the chairman of Grant Thornton Botswana, J. Ramesh, as well as the managing director of Venture Capital Botswana, Anthony Siwawa, who both have several years of experience regarding the country in question.
The moment he came on, there was absolute relief, not only in Zimbabwe as well as everywhere in the world. And after he came in, the first thing everybody was looking for is whether he's going to bring about free and fair elections. And the fact that he has stuck to his word and had the elections conducted recently has given him a lot of credibility. And one of the things that he's been saying right through is that he will bring about macroeconomic reforms and also bring about reforms in the governance of the country. Now, everybody has been saying that, well, let's wait and see how it is. So the first step is done, the elections are over, and then it's now for him to bring about the macroeconomic reforms and the governance reforms in the country. And he has been already active in terms of going around and talking about business. Zimbabwe is open for business, and that's the mantra he's been talking about. And one good thing is he has managed to already receive investment pledges to almost about 16 billion US dollars into Zimbabwe. Just compare it with about 239 million US dollars that came through in the last year. So that is a show of confidence. And the country needs a lot of injection and energy into the mining and the infrastructure sectors. And the fact that about 1.5 billion US dollars is already being pumped into the Hwange power plant to produce about 300 megawatts of power, and about 4.5 billion US dollars into the platinum mining by Karo Resources. Now these projects have already started, and that's an excellent reflection that investors are ready to come in. Not only that, previously there was this huge restriction in terms of the ownership of businesses. And that was every business must be owned 51% by Zimbabweans and only 49% by local foreigners. Now that he is pledged to change, and he has said from now on 100% can be owned by foreigners, and that will give confidence to the investors into the country. And just about restrictions in terms of some of the sectors like mining, where these restrictions will still apply in terms of 51% and 49%. Now these are some of the excellent things that he has already committed, and he has shown his willpower in getting it done. And this election mandate has given him that extra boost.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue to assess investor confidence in neighboring Zimbabwe, a country that has witnessed a change in leadership for the first time in 37 years. We're now joined by the Managing Director of Venture Partners Botswana, Mr. Anthony Siwawa, who has decades of experience investing within the region. What have been your observations with regards to investor confidence in Zimbabwe since the regime change? We've heard stories of more diamond exploration, more buying of shares by foreign investors on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Is this consistent with the observations you have made?
I think we're seeing a bit of a balance or a divergence depending on where you sit. I must tell you that my experience with Zimbabwe goes as far back as 1997, when we started making investments in Zimbabwe. And some of the more well-known brands, both financial services businesses coming out of Zimbabwe, we were involved in the investment thereof. So we've got good experience when Zimbabwe was working it was a fantastic place to invest. What we've seen now over the last year or so has been certainly a lot of positive sentiment, especially from Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans in the diaspora and Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe itself. And I say sentiment because I still have yet to see what I call structured investors or formal investors or institutional investors like ourselves making concerted moves to actually either make specific investments or change their policies around making investments in Zimbabwe. I think we expect that those changes to policies around investment policies for Zimbabwe will change. I must admit, though, that the sentiments being expressed by policymakers in Zimbabwe around infrastructure issues, especially power, water, energy, water, infrastructure, road infrastructure, and the need to fund that and find solutions around funding that has been very positive, which means that that in itself provides really scalable opportunities for investment in Zimbabwe if the policy environment becomes clear. I think what we are waiting for, all of us on the sidelines, is what is that policy framework that will guide investors going in. We're still going to be dealing with the expectations around indigenization. To what extent is that going to be? And I'm not saying that is a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it needs to be clarified so that you know what you are working with. And but you know, most of us who have invested in Zim, who've made some money in Zim or lost money in Zim, are very positive about the overall impact that it could have on the region. Zimbabwe had a great industrial base, a great workforce. The commodity environment in Zimbabwe is really exciting, and we are all really hoping. But I think over and above that, there's some macro and microeconomic fundamentals that need to change, that need to be managed, that are still providing a fairly difficult environment for the government to deal with. Issues such as money supply, issues such as the management of inflation, interest rates, and the currency issues. You know, are we dealing with bond notes on the one hand? I know, you know, I'm one person who's extremely sympathetic with the Zimbabwean government and what it has had to manage and the challenges it has had to manage on a global scale relative to the rest of the world. But now we have to go forward, and those issues need to be really, they need to be dealt with, and a clear position taken by the government, notwithstanding the constraints that the government currently has. And we're hoping that will change. But it's still early days. That's my view.
We thank you for tuning in to our weekly program. Next week, along with other topics of interest, we pick up our series entitled Own Your Day, Own Your Life with Professor Kieran Bhagat to ensure that we all know how to maintain healthy bodies and healthy minds in the pursuit of our professional ambitions. With that, however, it is good night from me, Nametso Samakula, and the First Issues team. This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?